What would you do if you spent 3 years working double shifts to save $35,000 for your dream wedding, only to wake up and find your bank account empty and your own sister wearing your dress? Chloe didn't just steal Maya's life savings. She hijacked her entire wedding date to throw herself a surprise influencer ceremony. But Chloe made one fatal mistake. She forgot that her sister is a professional accountant who knows exactly how to make a debt come due. But don't take my word for it. Here is Maya's story in her own words. My name is Maya, and for the last 3 years, I have lived my life by the numbers. As a senior accountant, I know that numbers don't lie, but people do. I spent 36 months balancing ledgers for high-profile firms by day and doing freelance bookkeeping for small businesses by night. My fiancé Leo and I lived in a space that barely qualified as a one-bedroom apartment. It smelled like our neighbors' burnt coffee and old carpet, but we didn't care. We had a goal. Every Friday night, instead of going out for cocktails or ordering sushi, Leo and I would sit at our chipped kitchen table with a spreadsheet. We called it the Magnolia Fund. Our dream was a spring wedding at the Grand Magnolia Estate, a venue with white marble floors, ancient oaks draped in Spanish moss, and a price tag that felt like a mountain we were climbing inch by inch. $35,000. That was the magic number for the catering, the venue, and the security for our future. I saved every scrap. I wore the same 2 pairs of work slacks until the inner thighs pilled. I cut my own hair. I haven't seen the inside of a movie theater in years. Leo was right there with me, picking up overtime shifts at the warehouse until his back felt like it was made of glass. We were a team. Then there was my sister, Chloe. Chloe doesn't understand numbers. She only understands vibes. She's a freelance influencer, which is a fancy way of saying she's 30 years old and still expects the world to hand her a trophy just for waking up. After our mother passed away 5 years ago, I felt a crushing weight to keep our small family together. I became Chloe's safety net. When her car was about to be repossessed, I paid the $1,200 back fee. When she needed a $2,000 designer handbag to maintain her brand image, for a photo shoot, I let her use my credit card, which she never paid back. I kept her as a joint authorized user on our legacy emergency account, the one Mom left us, because I thought family is family. I used that account to house the Magnolia Fund, never imagining that the person I shared blood with would see my sweat, my sacrifices, and my future as her personal slush fund. I thought I was protecting her. In reality, I was just feeding a predator who was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was a Tuesday morning, exactly 6 months before my wedding date. I remember the light hitting the dust motes in our kitchen as I took a sip of lukewarm coffee. I opened my banking app, a routine I did every week to see our progress. I was expecting to see $35,250. Instead, I saw a dash. My heart didn't just drop. It felt like it had been physically yanked out of my chest. Current balance $14.22. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. I thought it was a glitch, a banking error. I refreshed. $14.22. I scrolled down to the transaction history, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. There it was, a single massive outgoing wire transfer from the day before. The recipient, Magnolia Events Group. I called the venue immediately. My voice was a whisper. My throat felt like it was closing. This is Maya. I'm calling about the deposit for the October date. The coordinator, a woman named Sarah who I'd spoken to a dozen times, sounded confused and then suddenly cheerful. Oh, Maya! We were so surprised when your sister Chloe called yesterday. She explained the whole thing. It's such a beautiful gesture. She said you and Leo decided to gift her your date and the fund so she could have her surprise wedding to Jackson. We've already updated the contracts to her name. I didn't hear the rest. The room started spinning. Chloe hadn't just stolen the money, she had stolen my dream. She knew that date was the anniversary of our parents' wedding. She knew every penny was blood and sweat. That Sunday was our monthly family brunch. I walked into that restaurant feeling like a ghost. Chloe was already there, glowing, sipping a mimosa that she probably put on our dad's tab. She was wearing a new silk scarf and scrolling through a Pinterest board for modern Regency weddings. I didn't wait. I sat down and slid my phone across the table, the bank statement open. "Where is it, Chloe? Where is my money?" She didn't even flinch. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed. She took a slow sip of her drink and leaned back. "God, Maya, don't be so dramatic. You and Leo are fine. You're stable. Jackson and I have been through so much, and he finally proposed. I'm 30 now. This is my it girl moment. I needed a venue that matched my brand, and you already had the perfect spot saved. You stole $35,000. I hissed, my voice cracking. That was 3 years of my life. "It's an investment in the family brand," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Think of the exposure. Besides, you can always save up again. You're an accountant, right? Just do some more math. Don't be selfish, Maya. It's my turn to be happy." In that moment, looking at her smug, entitled face, something inside the supportive sister part of my brain finally snapped. It wasn't a loud break. It was a cold, silent shutoff. I realized that as long as I played by the rules of family, I would always lose. I didn't scream. I didn't reach across the table and tear that silk scarf off her neck, though every nerve in my body was screaming at me to do it. Instead, I took a deep breath and I let a mask slip over my face, a mask I'd perfected during years of grueling audits and high-stakes financial negotiations. I let my eyes well up with fake, soft tears. I reached out and squeezed Chloe's hand. "You're right," I whispered, my voice trembling just enough to be convincing. I was being selfish. I was just shocked. "But I want you to be happy, Chloe. Mom would have wanted you to have the perfect day." The change in her was instant. The defensiveness vanished, replaced by a glint of predatory triumph. She didn't feel sorry for me. She felt like she'd successfully bullied me into submission. "I knew you'd understand," she squealed, already pulling her iPad out of her bag. "Since you're already an authorized user on the Magnolia account, I was thinking you could stay on as my Maid of Honor. I need someone who actually knows how to handle the boring logistics so I can focus on the aesthetic and the guest list." "Logistics are my specialty," I said, and for the first time in 48 hours, I actually meant it. Chloe thought she was hiring a free secretary. She thought she was keeping me close so I wouldn't sue her or make a scene. What she didn't realize was that, as the Maid of Honor and the original account holder, I now had full legal access to every single vendor contract she was about to sign. I went home and told Leo everything. He was furious, ready to call the police right then, but I stopped him. "If we report the theft now, the bank freezes the money for months, and we might never see a dime," I explained, my voice cold. "But if we let her spend it, if we let her commit to the contracts, I can make sure she's the one who ends up in the hole, not us." I spent that night looking at our spreadsheet, but I wasn't adding up savings anymore. I was calculating a deficit. I was going to be the most helpful Maid of Honor in history. I was going to ensure that every luxury Chloe ordered, every premium orchid, every bottle of vintage champagne became a nail in her financial coffin. Over the next 3 months, I became Chloe's shadow. I was the perfect sister. I attended every tasting, nodded at every 200 per yard linen sample, and sat through 4-hour dress fittings. Chloe was in heaven. She was adding upgrades like she was playing with Monopoly money, because to her, she was. She added a late-night oyster bar, a custom ice sculpture of her own logo, and a 12-piece swing band that cost $8,000 alone. "Don't worry about the budget, Maya," she'd say with a dismissive wave. "The deposit covered the big stuff, and the rest, well, Jackson's parents are loaded. They'll handle the tail end." That was her biggest mistake. She assumed someone else would always catch her. As the Maid of Honor, I volunteered to coordinate with the vendors to take the stress off her. I called Sarah at the Magnolia Estate, the florist, and the catering lead. I told them a very specific story. I explained that the $35,000 initial deposit was currently under a bank fraud investigation due to an unauthorized wire transfer, which was technically the truth. To protect your businesses, I told them, using my most professional, authoritative accountant voice, you shouldn't rely on that deposit. It's likely to be clawed back by the fraud department within weeks. If you want to ensure you aren't left holding the bag for a $70,000 wedding, you need to change the terms of the contract. Panic is a powerful motivator for small business owners. I guided them through a contract addendum. I had them switch the final payment terms from 30 days post-event to payment due in full via certified check or credit authorization at the start of the reception. To keep them from calling Chloe and spooking her, I provided a proof of funds statement from Chloe's business account. As her accountant, I showed them a balance of $110,000. It was a total fabrication, a PDF I had expertly edited to include pending brand deals that didn't exist. The vendors felt safe. They thought they were dealing with a wealthy influencer who was just having some banking drama. Meanwhile, Leo and I were making our own moves. We packed our apartment in the middle of the night. We signed a lease on a new place 2 towns over and didn't give the address to anyone in the family. I bought a burner phone for wedding coordination and lost my old iPhone, effectively cutting off any way for Chloe to reach me after the trap was sprung. I watched Chloe post countdowns on Instagram. 3 days until the magic, she'd caption a photo of her sipping champagne. I just checked my watch and counted down the minutes until the bill came due. The day of the wedding was a masterpiece of vanity. The grand Magnolia estate was draped in thousands of white peonies, their scent heavy and cloying in the humid afternoon air. Chloe looked radiant, or at least she looked expensive. She walked down the aisle to a string quartet, grinning at the sea of smartphones held up by her influencer friends. Jackson, looking like a deer in headlights, stood there in a tuxedo that cost more than my first car. The ceremony was a blur of ego, but as we transitioned to the reception hall, the atmosphere shifted. The 12-piece band was playing, the oyster bar was shucking, and the champagne was flowing. Chloe was at the center of the room, basking in the glow of a custom neon sign that read, "The Jackson Surprise." That's when I saw Sarah, the venue coordinator, weaving through the crowd with 2 security guards and the catering manager. They didn't look happy. I stood by the head table, my heart hammering a steady, cold rhythm. "Chloe," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the music, "we need to step into the office. The credit card you provided for the $42,000 balance was declined, and the secondary authorization for the band bounced." Chloe laughed, that high, shrill sound she makes when she's nervous. "Oh, stop, it's a wedding, just run it again. Or ask Maya, she's the one with the bank logins." Sarah looked at me. I didn't move. I didn't offer a card. Instead, I walked over to the band's microphone and tapped it. The feedback screeched, silencing the room. "Can I have everyone's attention?" I said, my voice echoing off the marble walls. "I'd like to make a toast to my sister. 3 months ago, Chloe decided that her brand was more important than my life savings. She stole $35,000 from my wedding fund to pay for the floor you're standing on and the food you're eating." The room went deathly silent. Chloe's face turned a shade of white that matched her dress. "I've spent the last few months helping her plan this because I wanted to make sure every single vendor got their contracts updated," I continued. "As of 10 minutes ago, the fraud department at my bank officially reversed the unauthorized $35,000 wire transfer. Chloe, the deposit is gone. The bill is due. And as an accountant, I can tell you, you're officially bankrupt." The fallout was instant. Jackson's father, a man who built his reputation on being a pillar of the community, stood up, looked at his son, and walked out without a word. The band stopped playing mid-note and began packing their instruments. The catering staff literally stopped serving mid-plate. Chloe screamed at me, calling me a monster, a traitor, a jealous bitch. I just watched her. I watched the security guards escort her and Jackson into the office to discuss the theft of services. Leo and I walked out of that estate and never looked back. We took our recovered $35,000 and used it as a down payment on a house with a big backyard and a sturdy fence. I haven't spoken to Chloe since she took a plea deal for the financial fraud she committed. My life isn't a brand anymore. It's just mine. And for the first time in my life, the numbers finally add up to peace. Maya's journey is a powerful reminder of what happens when boundaries are pushed to the breaking point. But now that you've seen how it all unfolded, I want to hear from you. Who was truly at fault here? The sister who stole, or the family system that enabled her for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. It's important to remember that what you've just watched is a fictional dramatization created specifically for awareness and societal reform. We share these intense scenarios to shed light on dark realities, but please do not attempt to replicate these schemes or behaviors in your own life. We show you these mistakes so you don't have to repeat them. In the end, true justice isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your own peace. If you learned something valuable from Maya's story today, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our community for daily lessons in karma and justice.